stop right there, because in today's video you're about to see two famous British coins whose history and story are far more interesting than ordinary-looking coins. And most importantly, this video will tell you the truth. Unlike other channels, we do not give fake values, made-up prices, or exaggerated claims. Here, you will get information about the coin's real history, its importance, and its actual market value. If you're interested in some of the most famous and historic British coins in the world, then come with me, let me show you these two coins. First, we have the 1936 British penny coin, which dates back to the reign of King George V. This coin features the famous image of Britannia, and that design gives it special historical importance among British coin collectors. And after that comes the 1938 British penny coin, which is from the reign of King George VI. That means, with only a few years between them, you can see two different royal eras of British history in a single video. But here's the real question. Is there something special hidden in these two coins? Something that most people overlook? And could a particular condition, rarity, or mint error make one example far more valuable than an ordinary coin? That's exactly the information we'll look at carefully in today's video, because sometimes a small difference can completely change a coin's collectible value. So, let me first tell you about the 1936 British penny coin, which is especially famous for its history, design, and place in British numismatic history. Now let's tell you about the 1936 British penny coin, which is an extremely important and recognizable historic British coin from the reign of George V, and which has been very valuable in terms of worth. At first glance, it may look like just an old British penny, but when you understand what was happening in Britain at the time this coin was made, its story becomes much more interesting. The 1936 British penny was issued during the final year of the reign of King George V, which makes it one of the last regular circulating penny coins dated to his reign. And here is something that many people overlook. 1936 was an extraordinary year of change in British history. King George V died in January 1936, and his son, Edward VIII, became king. But Edward VIII did not remain on the throne for very long. Later that same year, he abdicated the throne, and George VI became king. So, this small penny belongs to a year that witnessed an extremely dramatic change in the British monarchy. And this historical connection is one of the reasons why 1936 British coins are so interesting to collectors. This coin was not made as a commemorative coin, nor was it specifically made for coin collectors. It was a regular circulating coin, made to be used in everyday buying and selling, in Britain at a time when the monetary system was still based on the old pre-decimal pound. 1 penny was equal to 1/240th of a pound, and 4 farthings made 1 penny. The 1936 penny was made of bronze, weighed approximately 9.45 grams, had a diameter of approximately 30.8 millimeters, and had a plain edge. Its standard reference is KM number 838. On the obverse, you can see the left-facing, uncrowned portrait of King George V. Around his portrait is the Latin inscription, Georgives Fifth de Grabret OMN Rex Fidefiendium. This was not just decoration. The inscription presented George V as king and defender of the faith, while also showing his status as Emperor of India. On the other side is the image that makes British penny coins from this era instantly recognizable. Britannia, she is shown seated, holding a trident with a shield beside her, and the sea visible in the background. At the top are the words 1 penny, while the date 1936 appears at the bottom. This design was created through the work of British coin designers and engravers, including Sir Edgar Bertram McKennell for the obverse design, and Leonard Charles Wine for the reverse design used on this type of coin. But now, here comes a very surprising part. You may have heard people online saying that every 1936 British penny is extremely rare, or that an ordinary example could be worth millions of dollars. But the evidence does not show that. In fact, approximately 154,296,1936 British pennies were produced. That is a very large number. So, just because the coin says 1936 on it, does not turn an ordinary 1936 penny into a $1 million coin. And this is where condition, strike quality, and the coin's special status become extremely important. A circulated example with obvious wear generally has only modest value to collectors. According to a price guide from a reputable dealer, it may be worth approximately 50 cents in good condition, $2.80 in very good condition, $8 in extremely fine condition, $15. Doro in about uncirculated condition, and approximately $30 in uncirculated condition. These are not guaranteed prices, because the actual selling price depends on the coin's appearance, grade, authenticity, and the buyer, because an error in the coin's production is what can take it from a small value to a large value. Its price never stays the same. Sometimes its value can be a few dollars, and sometimes it can go as high as $40,000 to $50,000. We'll tell you further ahead how high its value can actually go. But then we reach the really interesting part. Proof coins. A proof coin is not simply an ordinary circulated coin that happens to look shiny. Proof coins are struck using special methods, generally with specially prepared dies and planches, creating a sharper and more polished appearance. And this is where the 1936 British penny can enter a completely different price range. According to NGC auction records, certified proof examples of the 1936 Great Britain penny have sold for the $2,380, $1,410.25, and $2,115, with the price depending on grade and condition. The $2,115 coin was graded PF65 red-brown by PCGS and was sold through Heritage Auctions. And another auction record for the 1936 British penny also records a sale of 1,400, which took place in an auction by Baldwin's of St. James's. So, if someone asks you, can a 1936 British penny really be worth thousands of dollars? The honest answer is yes, but not every penny. An ordinary circulated coin is nowhere near that level. The real high value is associated with exceptional examples, especially proof coins and coins that have survived in outstanding condition and have unusual appeal to collectors. And here is another important point. There is no reliable evidence that an ordinary 1936 British penny is worth $1 million, $2 million, or several million dollars. If you see these numbers online alongside an ordinary 1936 British penny, be extremely careful. A price listed on a website is not the same as a price actually achieved at a verified auction. A seller can ask for almost any price. What matters is how much a genuine buyer actually paid. Now let's talk about mint errors. This is another area where collectors need to be careful. There is no single official list stating that a fixed number of valuable mint errors exist among 1936 British pennies. Coins from this era may show striking errors, die problems, planchet-related issues, or damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. And this difference is extremely important. A genuine mint error occurs during the manufacturing process. Damage caused decades later by being struck, bent, scratched, cleaned, or exposed to corrosion does not automatically make it a mint error. For example, if a coin appears unusually struck off-center, has an unusual strike, shows a die crack, or has another unusual mint characteristic, it deserves closer examination. But never assume that every strange mark is valuable. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is confusing damage with a mint error. If you believe your 1936 penny has a major error, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not scratch its surface to make its details clearer, and do not try to fix it yourself. A valuable original surface can be permanently damaged by cleaning. If your coin looks particularly rare, the safest approach is professional authentication and grading. Services such as PCGS and NGC can examine the coin, determine its authenticity, grade it, and, when appropriate, identify varieties or special features. This can be extremely important when a coin's potential value reaches hundreds or thousands of dollars. So, how can you protect your 1936 British penny? First, hold it by the edges. Whenever possible, avoid touching its main surfaces with your fingers. Keep it away from moisture, chemicals, harsh cleaning products, and abrasive materials. Never use household metal cleaning polish. Just because you want to see an old bronze coin look brighter, never put it into an acidic cleaning solution. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces over artificially cleaned surfaces, and if you already have a beautiful coin with an original surface, preserving it can be much more important than making it shine. Now the question is, where can you sell a valuable 1936 British penny? If it is an ordinary circulated example, you may find buyers through coin dealers, collector markets, or online coin platforms. But if you believe you have an unusual proof coin, a major mint error, or an extremely high-grade example, a reputable auction house may be a better choice. You can also contact professional coin dealers and get more than one opinion before selling. And if someone immediately tells you that your coin is worth millions without properly examining it, that should be a warning sign. Remember, the value of a real coin is determined not by excitement, but by evidence. And that brings us to the most important lesson about the 1936 British 1 penny. This is not a coin where the date alone will make you rich. Its real appeal comes from its history, its connection to the final year of George V, its classic Britannia design, the large production of approximately 154,296,000 coins in 1936, and above all, those exceptional examples that survived in proof condition or exceptionally high-grade condition. A worn coin may be worth only a small amount. A coin in better condition can be worth considerably more, and a certified proof coin can reach a four-figure value, with verified auction records reaching more than $2,000. No zero. For a coin with a face value of 1 penny, that is already an astonishing difference. So, if you have a 1936 British penny sitting in an old collection, drawer, box, or inherited coin album, do not throw it away, but do not believe every $1,000,000 claim you see online either. Look at it carefully, check the date, examine its surfaces, look for unusual, striking characteristics. Pay attention to its condition, and if something really looks unusual, have it professionally examined. Because sometimes the greatest discovery is not finding a coin worth millions of dollars. It is discovering the real story and real market value hidden behind that coin, something that most people simply overlook. Now, after the 1936 British 1 penny coin, let's talk about the 1938 British 1 penny coin, a famous and historically important British coin from the reign of King George VI. And before we go any further, there is one important detail you should know. The 1938 British penny was not made during the reign of George V. It belongs to the reign of George VI, who became king after the dramatic events of 1936. That means, when you hold a 1938 penny in your hand, you are holding a coin from the early years of a new royal era, a period when Britain was moving toward one of the most important and difficult chapters of the 20th century. At first glance, the 1938 penny may look like an ordinary old bronze coin, but its history, design, production, varieties, condition, and especially its proof examples make it much more interesting than most people realize. So, what exactly is the 1938 British one penny? Why was it made? How was it produced? How many were made? What varieties exist? Which one is the common type? Which examples are the rarest? And how much can one really be worth today? Let's go through all of it. The 1938 British one penny was a regular circulating coin of Great Britain. It was not created as a commemorative coin. It was not designed specifically for collectors. It was produced for everyday commerce, meaning ordinary people could use it to buy goods and services. At that time, Britain was still using the old pre-decimal currency system. £1 was divided into 240 pennies, so the penny was a very small denomination, but it was an essential part of everyday life. And there is something fascinating about the timing. The coin was produced in 1938, only 2 years after George VI became king. Britain was also living through a period of major political and international tension. The Second World War had not yet officially begun, but Europe was already moving toward conflict. So this little bronze penny comes from a period immediately before one of the greatest turning points in modern history. Now let's look at the coin itself. The 1938 British penny is made of bronze. It weighs approximately 9.4 grams, has a diameter of approximately 31 millimeters, and has a plain edge. The standard catalog reference is KM 845. The obverse features the portrait of King George VI facing left. Unlike the portrait of George V on the earlier penny, this is the new portrait representing the beginning of George VI's reign. The portrait was designed by Thomas Humphrey Paget, whose initials appear on the coin. Around the king is the Latin inscription identifying him as George VI, King of the British Territories, Defender of the Faith, and Emperor of India. This is important because the words IND, Impy, reflected George VI's position as Emperor of India at the time. But history would soon change that. The reverse carries the famous seated figure of Britannia. She is shown seated, holding a trident, with a shield beside her and the sea in the background. The denomination 1 penny appears on the reverse, along with the date 1938. This classic Britannia design connects the coin to a long tradition of British bronze pennies. But there is something else collectors need to understand. The 1938 penny belongs to a broader George VI penny series that ran from 1937 through 1948 with the same basic type. And according to NGC's World Coin Price Guide, the 1938 issue had a mintage of approximately 121,560,000 coins. That is a huge number. And this single fact destroys one of the biggest myths you may hear online. A normal 1938 British penny is not automatically a rare million-dollar coin. In fact, because more than 121 million were produced, ordinary circulated examples are generally affordable. Current reference values show ordinary 1938 examples in the range of modest amounts depending on condition, with an uncirculated example listed around $4.60 by Numista. These figures are only indications, not guaranteed selling prices. So where does the excitement come from? The answer is condition, proof status, and exceptional specimens. And this is where the 1938 penny becomes much more interesting. Let's talk about the different forms collectors may encounter. The most common type is the ordinary 1938 circulation penny. This is the coin that was made in enormous numbers and released into everyday circulation. These coins were handled by thousands of people. They traveled through shops, markets, pockets, cash registers, and drawers. Over the decades, most of them developed scratches, dark surfaces, worn details, and other signs of circulation. That is why finding a completely original, sharply struck, high-grade example is much more interesting than simply finding the date. Then we have proof examples. A proof coin is fundamentally different from a normal circulation strike. Proof coins were specially produced using carefully prepared dies and planches, generally creating sharper details and more reflective surfaces. These coins were not intended for everyday spending. They were produced for presentation, collectors, and official sets, and this is where the rarity changes dramatically. The ordinary 1938 penny had a mintage of 121,560,000, but the proof version represents a tiny fraction of that number. That difference is one of the most important things to understand when evaluating a 1938 British penny. A normal coin can be common, a proof of the same date can be scarce, and a superbly preserved certified proof can be worth dramatically more. Now let's talk about the highest confirmed auction evidence. Heritage Auctions recorded a Great Britain George VI proof penny 1938 PR66 Plus brown PCGS, which sold for $3,525 in January 2015. That is a very important number because it is based on an actual auction result, not simply a seller's asking price. And that distinction matters. You may see websites claiming that an ordinary 1938 British penny is worth $10,000, $50,000, or even millions of dollars. But you should never confuse an asking price with a verified sale. A seller can put $1 million on a coin and wait for someone to buy it. That does not make the coin worth $1 million. A real auction result is much stronger evidence, and for the 1938 British penny, the documented auction evidence shows that exceptional proof examples can reach the thousands, while ordinary circulated coins generally remain much more modestly valued. This is exactly why condition matters so much. Imagine two 1938 pennies sitting next to each other. Both have the same date. Both are made of bronze. Both carry George VI on the obverse and Britannia on the reverse. But one has been heavily circulated for decades, while the other has survived with sharp details, attractive original surfaces, and an extremely high certified grade. They may look like the same coin. To a collector, they can be completely different coins. Now let's discuss the varieties. For this 1938 penny, you should be careful about claims that there are dozens of officially recognized, extremely rare varieties. The standard 1938 circulation issue is fundamentally one major date type, while proof examples form a separate category. The broader George VI penny series does contain varieties and differences across dates and issues, but that does not mean every tiny difference on a 1938 coin is a valuable variety. This is another area where misinformation spreads quickly online. A tiny scratch is not a variety. A dent is not a variety. A damaged letter is not automatically a variety. A strange-looking edge is not automatically a rare mint error. And discoloration does not automatically mean the coin is rare. A genuine variety or mint error needs to be understood in the context of how the coin was actually manufactured. That brings us to another fascinating question. How was this coin made? The process began with metal being prepared into suitable bronze planches. The blank pieces were produced to the correct size and weight. They were then prepared for striking. Dies carrying the obverse and reverse designs were installed in the minting machinery. The planche was positioned between the dies. Then enormous pressure was applied to strike the design into the metal. This created the portrait of George VI on one side and Britannia on the other. The result was a bronze coin approximately 31 millimeters wide and weighing approximately 9.4 grams. And because these were circulating coins, they were produced for practical everyday use rather than artistic perfection. That means slight differences in strike quality can exist. Some coins can show stronger details, others can appear softer, some can develop attractive natural toning, others can become dark or heavily worn. And this is why professional grading can become important for exceptional examples. If you believe your 1938 penny is something special, organizations such as PCGS and NGC can authenticate and grade the coin. A certified grade gives buyers a much clearer understanding of the coin's condition. And when you are dealing with an exceptional coin, that can make a major difference. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake you can make with this coin. Cleaning it. If you find a 1938 British penny, do not immediately grab metal polish. Do not use toothpaste. Do not scrub it with a brush. Do not use abrasive materials. And do not put it into an aggressive chemical solution just because you want it to look brighter. Why? Because the original surface is part of the coin's collectible value. Once you damage that surface, you may never be able to restore it. A bright, artificially cleaned bronze coin can actually be less desirable to collectors than a darker coin with completely original surfaces. So if your coin looks old, dark, or naturally toned, leave it alone. Handle it by the edges. Keep your fingers away from the main surfaces. Store it somewhere dry and stable. Use an appropriate coin holder or archival quality storage system. Avoid excessive humidity, chemicals, PVC-containing materials, and unnecessary handling. And if the coin appears unusually rare, get professional advice before doing anything to it. Now let's answer another important question. Where can you sell a 1938 British penny? If you have an ordinary circulated example, you can approach local coin dealers, collector markets, online coin marketplaces, or specialist numismatic groups. But if your coin is a high-grade, uncirculated example, a proof or a possible mint error, you should think differently. You may want to contact a reputable professional coin dealer. You can also seek an auction house specializing in coins. Major auction firms can expose exceptional coins to serious collectors who are willing to compete against one another. And before selling, it is smart to get more than one opinion. Never let someone tell you that your coin is worth millions without examining it properly. And never pay a huge fee simply because someone claims your ordinary penny is secretly worth a fortune. Now, let's talk about something that makes the 1938 penny especially interesting. This coin was created before decimalization. Britain would not switch to decimal currency until 1971. That means the people who originally used this penny were dealing with a completely different monetary system. A penny was not simply one small unit in the modern sense. It was part of a system where 240 pennies equaled 1 pound. So this little bronze coin is also a physical reminder of a monetary system that no longer exists. That is part of its historical appeal, and remember, this was the reign of George VI. His reign would soon become closely associated with the Second World War. The 1938 penny therefore belongs to a moment just before Britain entered that enormous global conflict. Think about that for a moment. This coin may have passed through someone's hands shortly before the war. It may have been used in a shop. It may have sat in a cash drawer. It may have been carried by a worker. It may have been saved by a child. And eventually, decades later, it may have ended up inside a collector's album. That is the kind of story that makes old coins fascinating. But there is one more thing you need to understand. You should never value this coin simply because it is old. Age alone does not create a huge price. Rarity matters, condition matters, authenticity matters, demand matters, and most importantly, actual market evidence matters. A 1938 penny with heavy circulation can be worth only a small amount. A better preserved example can be worth more. A superb certified specimen can command significantly higher prices, and an exceptional proof can reach the four-figure range, with the documented heritage result reaching $3,525,000. So when someone asks, is the 1938 British one penny worth millions of dollars, the honest answer is simple. There is no reliable evidence that an ordinary 1938 British penny is worth $1 million, $2 million, or several million dollars. The word millions may sound exciting in a YouTube title, but collectors need evidence. If someone ever discovers a genuinely unique mint error or an extraordinary specimen and it achieves a multi-million-dollar auction result, that would be a completely different situation. But until an actual sale proves it, it should not be presented as the established value of a normal 1938 penny. And that is exactly why this coin is so interesting. It teaches us that a coin does not have to be worth millions to be fascinating. The real story is in the details, the portrait of George VI, the Britannia design, the bronze composition, the 9.4-gram weight, the approximately 31-millimeter diameter, the huge circulation mintage of 121,560,000, the much scarcer proof examples, and the documented auction results showing that exceptional specimens can move from ordinary coin prices into the thousands. So, if you have a 1938 British one penny sitting inside an old collection, a drawer, a box, or an inherited coin album, do not throw it away. And do not clean it. First, check the date. Then, examine the portrait. Look carefully at Britannia. Study the surfaces. Check for unusual striking characteristics. Look for signs that the coin may have been specially struck or preserved in exceptional condition. And if you think you have something unusual, have it professionally examined. Because sometimes the most valuable thing about an old coin is not the fantasy price someone puts on it online. It is the truth behind the coin, the real history, the real rarity, the real condition, and the real market value. The 1938 British one penny may have started life as a tiny piece of bronze worth just 1 penny in Britain's old monetary system. But today, the right example can tell a story worth thousands of dollars. And that is exactly why you should never judge an old coin by its face value alone. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button.